English language class with Mr. Marshone. In today's class, I'll be teaching you on topic structural features, and this topic will enhance your reading comprehension. So there are a lot of structural features you should be looking out for when you're reading your English language assessment test, especially if you're preparing for your Cambridge Lower Secondary Checkpoint English language. All right, so let's get to see what we have today. All right, so the first we'll look at is when you're reading your text, that is whether paper one for the non-fiction or paper two fiction, you should be looking out for the tenses that have been used, because the tenses are what indicate the time of action in a sentence, and it is crucial for your understanding of context in reading. Right, so and these are the tenses we should be looking at for. There are quite many, but they could be summarized into a few of these ones I'm going to share with you in this video. So the first one is present tense. The present tense describes action happening now or regularly. And as you can see in your screen, you see that's three examples, which are: she walks to school every day, the sun rises in the east, I love reading. And the reason why writers use this present tense is to present the tense, which is the present tense, is to present facts, or maybe you're describing fact, habit, or universal truth. For example, every good turn deserves another. More like a thing that is known, is a universal truth. There's no controversy on that. So you could use the present tense, which is the simple present tense, to talk about it. Or for immediacy in storytelling, when you use the present tense in your story, that is a simple present tense, it gives the reader a feel of immediacy, like they could experience the event as it's happening right in there now. All right, so of course we have the simple present tense, the continuous form of it, right? Yes, and that's it. But let's proceed to the next one. Apart from the present tense, we also have the past tense, and then the past tense focuses on actions that have already occurred. For instance, he visited Lagos last year. They played football after school. I read that book yesterday. You can see all these three sentences are written in the past. And the past tense is the most common in narrative tenses, or that is a narrative I meant to say, right? And it is used to recount completed actions. You use it to tell story, describe historical events, or reflect on experiences. And then we also have the future tense. The future tense discusses actions that will happen later. For example, you have the examples I have for you here, which are she will travel to Canada next month. We are going to start the project tomorrow. I shall help you with your homework. Of course, now the reason for the future tense is to express prediction, intentions, promises, or planned actions, and it helps writer to discuss what is expected, or what is to be expected or anticipated in a text. It's very, very important to take note of these tenses, because your understanding of how the tenses, or rather the dynamic of tense use in text, will really help you in appreciating the text more effectively. And then we also have the continuous tense. Now, this continuous tense is kind of fluid, in the sense that you can have the present continuous, you can have the past continuous, and you can also have the future continuous. All right, so for instance, you have the these examples, which is she is studying for her exam. In this case, she is studying for her exam is a present continuous. And then we have they were playing when the rain started, and this is past continuous. And we also have I will be working at 8 p.m. tonight. Of course, this is past 8 p.m. and I'm still working on this work, on this project or on this lesson, okay? So, and the reason we use the continuous tense is to emphasize actions in progress. It creates atmosphere. It shows in interruption in narrative, or rather, yes, something of that nature. And it also highlights temporary situation, because when you say something is in process, I am studying, it shows that probably in some year time the studying will stop. Or I was studying, it means that at a point in time that action was ongoing. All right. So apart from these, there's this the last one I would like to share with you, which is the perfect tense. Just like the uh, continuous tense, the perfect tense can be a present perfect, past perfect, or future perfect. So the perfect tense shows actions that are show actions that are completed relative to another in time. All right, it shows completed action often connected to another time or action, and it can be present, like I've mentioned, past or future perfect. For instance, she has finished her homework. This example is present perfect. She has finished her homework. So it has finished before. Now, this present time we are in. So we say this is present perfect. And then we also have she had left she had left before we arrived. If you check this example, you see that we have two actions that happened in the past. The act of they, okay, I think they mispronounced that. Okay, the act of they living, that what happened in the past. Then we arrived also happened in the past, but one of these actions happened before the other happened. And in this case, they living was what happened before we arrived. So when you want to mention the act of them leaving before our arrival, we say they had left before we arrived. In this case, you have an example of perfect past or past perfect, right? Then we also have the another one here. By next year, I will have completed my degree, because I think the degree I'm running at shall be completed in some few years to come, if not. All right, so but that's by the way. So you can tell here I've given you an example of the present perfect, the past perfect, and the future perfect. I just hope you'll be able to also give your own example uh, as I've given to you in all of what we've done so far. All right, having said this, I would like you to know that the reason for the perfect tense is to highlight completion or sequence of events, more like cause and event, because if that hadn't, this wouldn't, you understand? Good, that's cause an effect relationship. You can use it for it. Or maybe even links between different times time period. All right, so let's proceed. Now, apart from the tense, we also have another structural feature you should be looking out for whenever you read, and that one is repetition. And what's repetition? Repetition has to do with repeating same word, phrase, or even structure for emphasis. And why do you use them? You use them to reinforce ideas and create rhythm. For example, you can see read today, read tomorrow, read every day. Here you see that there's a repetition of the word read, read, read. But this is not just this example I've given to you is not just an example of repetition of word alone. If you check the structure of the sentences here, you can see that the sentence structure are also the same. Read today, that is verb adverb, read tomorrow, verb, adverb, read every day, verb, adverb. So in this case, we have a case of repetition of same word and also the repetition of uh, same structure, right? So and it is used to reinforce ideas or create rhythm. In fact, this example I've given to you actually reinforces the idea of you having to read as often as you can, and also it also creates a rhythm. If you read it, you check out that it actually has a rhythm. All right, so that is example of repetition. Now the next one we'll look at is anaphora. Anaphora, right? So and anaphora is the repeating of the same word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. And sometimes I always want to say that anaphora is the elder brother to repetition. And of course, you can tell that repetition isn't the same as anaphora. Anaphora simply has to do with the repetition of same word or phrase at the beginning. Just need for us to stress the the beginning of anaphora being at the beginning of clauses or successive clauses. But repetition could actually happen just anywhere within the clause structure or any ideas, but you could just tell that repetition something is being repeated. Excuse me. All right, so what's the reason for anaphora? We use anaphora in writing to build momentum, to emphasize a point. And you can see example here. Well, for example, you have this. She opened the door, she opened the book, she turned the page, she began to read. At this point, you can see that this anaphora is used to build a momentum to the point whoever that is being referred to here or is being referenced here began to read the book. She opened the book, she turned the page, she began to read. So this is quite a good example of anaphora. Next we're going to have is listing. Listing is a sequence of items or ideas represented one after another. Right, so why do we use listing? We use it to organize ideas clearly and to add varieties, right? Yes, use it to add variety. And the example is, for example, you have it on the screen here, which is book inspires, informs, entertain, and educate, right? Or just as we have on the screen, books inspire, inform, entertain, and educate. So you have the listing here. We've been told that book inspire, which is one quality, informs, and even entertains and educates. So this one is listing. Just closely related to this is the rule of three, whereby you use at least three adjectives to describe a noun, and all of this one is to reinforce or emphasize a point. Okay, so and then we're gonna move on. Don't forget, this is more like a summary of the whole class that we're going to be having for we'll be having in-depth interaction or proper interaction to look at all of this in depth. This is a summary of everything we'll be doing in class, right? So that's why I seem to be rushing everything we have on this video. All right, the next is rhetorical question. Rhetorical question, of course, I believe you should have an idea of it. It's a question asked for effect, not necessarily requiring an answer. And why do you use that? Use it for engagement. You use it to engage the reader and provoke thoughts. Uh, for example, you can say, isn't it time every child had access to books? Of course, you're not expecting whoever that's listening to you to say, oh yeah, it's time every child had access to books. Just for the person to think, is it or is there any child who hasn't had access to books? Is there a need to fix a gap or whatever, and the person just had to act as it's expected, not necessarily answer you. So, closely related to rhetorical question is a structural feature or a feature in writing that is called hypophora. Hypophora, right? So hypophora is a question asked and immediately answered by the writer, more like the opposite of rhetorical question. Why do you use that? It is used to clarify ideas and keeps the reader engaged as well. So, for rhetorical question, you ask and expect no answer. Others, for hypophora, you ask and immediately answer the question. For instance, you could say, why do we read? Because stories helps us grow. Rather, because stories help us grow, right? Good. So in this case, we say the reader or the writer has asked the question why we read and immediately answers the question because stories help us grow. So that's a good example of hyperphora. All right, so let's proceed to the next one, which is declarative sentences. Declarative sentences. All right, so what are declarative sentences? I think anybody, almost everybody who is in this video now should know what declarative sentences is, what declarative sentences are rather. All right, so and a sentence is said to be declarative when it is stating a fact or opinion. Yes. So when you're using a declarative sentence, you are trying to convey information in a clear and confident manner. When you say this is red, everyone thinks, oh, you're so convinced and you're so sure that what you are pointing at is actually having the color red. So when you're using declarative statement, you are actually trying to sound as confidently as you can. And of course, I have another example for you here, which is reading improves memory and focus. At this point, maybe like a professor of psychology or something that is talking, say reading improves memory and focus. So when you use declarative statement or sentences, you are trying to be clear or trying to sound confidently. So when you see that in reading or in reading text or reading extract, you should know how to interpret all of this as I've shared with you. All right. So so let's go on to the next one, which is circular structure. Circular structure is a text that ends where it began, creating a sense of completion. Why is it used? Because it tries to tie the narrative together for impact. For example, let's say this. He opened his first book on in that chair, and many years later, he read his last one there too. Right? That was a poor reading, right, for me. Okay, let's take it again. He opened his first book in that chair, and many years later, he read his last one there too. So more like a beginning and end, starting from same point. So we can refer to that as a circular structure. You should look out for structures like this. Your checkpoint English excerpt or extract will not always have all of these structures, but it is important you look out for any of these structural features because being that the English language is very rich and vast, there is no telling where the examiner could just bring any of their items from any of them. So it is important to get yourself to know all this. Be familiarize yourself with all of these structures we've talked about so far. Now, having said that, we still have more to do. Let's look at this, which is direct and indirect speech. So let's look at direct speech. Direct speech is writing the exact words that are spoken using quotation marks. For example, she said, reading is my favorite escape. Oh, that reminds me. All right. So you that is listening to me, what's your favorite escape? Of course, that's just that. Okay, now let's look at how we might write uh, in an indirect speech. Of course, indirect speech is also known as reported speech. When you report a speech without a quotation mark, for example, you could say, she mentioned that reading helped her relax. You're trying to restate what has been said in the uh, direct speech. And if you want to just write the one I have there on the screen, you can say, she said that reading that reading is her favorite escape. Okay, so the same thing. Excuse me. Why add as in why do we use this? When you use direct or indirect speech, you add voice and variety to the starting. And if you don't mind, you could just try your hands at converting direct speech to indirect speech or indirect speech to direct speech for you to get to master uh, this structural feature in uh, text. Next, we'll look at minor sentence. Minor sentence is a minor sentence rather is an incomplete sentence that still conveys meaning. You should know that minor sentences don't conform to the the regular rules of grammar. All right, they don't conform. Because, for example, uh, is a sentence ought to start with maybe capital letter, ends with full stop, and it should have a finite verb for it to convey complete sense, but it doesn't always work in that manner when it comes to minor sentences. We use them to add emphasis or give a conversational tone. For example, when people talk, you can easily notice that people just could, as they are talking, they could just break off without ending their sentence, right? And then pick it up again. So, in fact, in natural speech, people speak using minor sentences. Hardly you see someone or you hear people speaking in uh, complex or complex sentences as uh, you encounter in text. So when you encounter uh, minor sentences, you could decode or decipher or interpret it that the writer is trying to uh, lend a conversational tone to the writing. Example, for example, you have here, don't mind my repetition, like no doubt about it. No, so many books. These two examples are not complete sentences, but that is what it is. Come across them. So minor sentences, you could try writing minor sentences to express excitement about reading. For instance, that could be activity you could just do and see how it comes well. The next we look at is connectives. Yes, connectives. The connectives, they are words or phrases that link ideas. We use them to improve flow and coherence. When you use connective properly in your writing, it makes the reader to follow your your line of thoughts. All right, the line of thoughts. And when you use your connective properly, it helps you not to forget what you've said previously. It makes you make sense, sort of, you understand. So, for example, I stayed up late because the story was too good to stop. Here, I'm sure you can tell the connective, and the connective is your the word because. Okay, because is the connective here. So that's it. And maybe you can try write a sentence about reading using connective. For example, because, therefore, however, in as much as, all of that. So beyond that, we still have another um, headings and subheadings. Headings and subheadings are, let's talk about headings. They are titles indicating the main subject. For example, the joy of reading. And you have the subheading, which organizes your content under headings. For example, now we have the main heading, which is the heading which has to do, which is the joy of reading. In a subheading could be a benefit for children, right? So why do we use that? It guides reader through the text, right? Guys, read that through the text. You want to try experimenting with uh, using the heading and subheading in your write-ups. It will do you good, because as you master the art of using heading and subheading in your writing, you get to also understand how it is used in reading extracts. I believe I'm communicating. If you followed me to this point, I would like you to, if you or if this ever comes out as a video and you're seeing it on any of the channel and you've gotten to this point with me, I expect you to have given me your thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel you are watching it from. All right, so and let's proceed to some more. We have the uh, italics and bold fonts. You also come across things, strong features like this in your text. Why do we use them? The slanted text is used for emphasis or distinction. When you see them in text, it means that the writer is trying to make you understand something about what is being uh, uh, written in that. He wants you to take note of it because he wants that word to stand out. For example, I always remember uh, the line, books are the mirrors of the soul. So books are the mirrors of the soul. For example, the word mirror could be italicized to reflect that you need to take note of that word mirror. And then we also have the bold font, which articulate us to highlight key ideas. In fact, whenever you're reading a text, in fact, on the screen as it is now, the word that that pop that pop out to you are words like italic and bold font, italic, bold font. Reading is the foundation of learning. These are the words that shoot out to you first before you take note of the others, and that is the the work of the bold font. All right, so you may just try to do that, and this, you wouldn't be able to use this if you're writing with a pen and paper, right? But if you're typing, you'll be able to experiment with these two uh, features I just mentioned. All right, now we really learned a lot. We really learned a lot. So it's time for us to put it all, yeah, put it all together. And this is what you're going to do. You should write a short essay about why reading is important, using at least three structural features from today's lesson. All right, so you can share your whatever your responses, can share it with me at the email that is on the screen, which is at benigo.omashine@abujaworld.com. All right, so that's about it. We'll see you in our next outing. Should I come your way again, you are on to Mr. Omashine. All right, have a good time. Bye for now.